keep finding ways that we're helping partners finding either, balance in their life or focus or purpose.
Practices that are going to help improve your project management skills or your finances.
We're here to talk about setting long-term goals and then how to achieve them.
Increasing your quality, therefore becoming the best place in town to work.
Welcome to Academy Live. Welcome back to another episode of Academy Live. Have you ever wondered why there's no guidebook on becoming a successful manager? As a new manager, are you struggling to navigate the complex landscape of management and leadership within your MSP? Well, Pax8 Academy has got you covered. In this episode, we will sit down with Sara Ehrich, Partner Education Specialist at Pax8, to explore the critical growth stages of leadership and the key Pax8 Academy courses designed to equip you with the skills that you need at every level. Whether you're an aspiring manager or a seasoned executive, this episode will provide you with valuable insights to elevate your leadership game. Before we get all into all of that, let's take a look at our colleague Jared Pengretic talk about leadership.
Hey, this is Jared Pengretic, and this is my leadership story. The topic I want to discuss with you all today is about giving and receiving effective feedback. And before I get into a couple scenarios to share with you, I just wanted to point out a few things I feel like are important to consider. First of all, we all have sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems, which can be triggered. A sympathetic nervous system refers to our fight or flight mentality and what puts us into a defensive position. The parasympathetic nervous system is the opposite, what remains and keeps us in a state of being calm and feeling balanced and open and receptive. With those two things in mind, I want to point out a couple scenarios that I think are important in the start of your journey. First of all, there are some instances where we can give feedback and we actually have time to plan and prepare for that. We can think about how we enter into a conversation and walk through with that individual the pieces that maybe went well, some of the areas that could have been improved that we believe could be improved. And there's a way to facilitate those types of conversations. We think about it with our head, our IQ, we think about it with our heart, our EQ, and our gut, our instincts. And so we know going into that situation, we've had a little bit of time to prepare for that conversation, and we can facilitate it by opening with, let's talk about that situation or that meeting or that instance we had. Talk to me a little about how you think that went. Here is what I observed, and from my perspective, where I think there's some areas where we could make some improvement or some suggestions for you to try. And those are some of the best conversations you can have, right? But there are also situations where we need to give immediate feedback almost in the moment. And we don't have a lot of time to sit down and think through and chart out how we're going to have the conversation. Sometimes we have to have it and deliver it very quickly. And so you might think about perhaps behavioral or perhaps a process or a situation where maybe someone was offended and we have to give some feedback so the other individual understands that it was observed and realized and seen by others. Those situations can be a little bit more tricky. Sometimes we get a little tense and dry in the mouth. But what's critical about these conversations is that the feedback is given and received and agreed to. And so you might understand and play out a scenario for a behavioral situation to say, I need to have a quick conversation with you. This is what I observed from the conversation or the situation that unfolded, and these types of behaviors are not okay. Or these types of behaviors were offensive to some individuals or could be perceived as offensive to other individuals. Do you understand how these types of comments can make others feel? Using your words carefully in these types of moments are critical because we want the information to be absorbed and received by the individual we're speaking to, but also it is critical that they gain agreement and clearly understand. So sometimes I like to wrap that up with, what do you believe we can do in these types of situations moving forward? And that allows for an opportunity for me to gauge that they actually have received it and can repeat something back to me about, hey, I agree. In these situations, I saw how that was seen as offensive. I'm going to be better about that, and I apologize. Those types of in-the-moment feedback must be given, and as you as a leader need to show that bravery to that individual and, of course, to yourself. As a leader, there are going to be many instances that you will be giving and also receiving feedback. Think through some of these tips that we've discussed today and put them into action, but also always take some time to reflect on situations and conversations that went well and areas that you could make improvements.
Well, that was some great insight from Jared. And I'm hearing a little echo. Hopefully that goes away. But anyways, Jared was really interesting to hear from him and to learn more about giving and receiving feedback. Sarah, what did you really think of that video?
Yeah, it's such a great place to start when we're going on to our management or our leadership roles to have some tools in our tool belt about how to handle crucial conversations like that. I thought that was a really good analysis or just a layout of how we have our own reaction to it. We'll have our own gut feeling, we'll have our own emotional reaction, and how to kind of navigate that to still allow for some real crucial conversations to be happening with our employees because they're needed. We must have that tool as we go into those roles.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know I took a course a while back around crucial conversations, and it really helped me give me those insights around having how to approach those tough conversations and kind of strategies around that. I also really love Jared talked about your physical body and how your responses and how that plays an impact in how you like what you feel in those conversations. And I think that's so important because we don't always think about that. We're like, oh, I know I need to do this and I know I need to talk to them about this, but not always thinking, how will my body react to that? And how can I know about that ahead of time to make some changes, maybe? What did you think about that?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. So part of it, what I've heard a lot of people say is that they're trying to like manage their reaction to things. And what they want is to not feel the feels when they're going into it. When the
Right.
reality is our body is going to do and our ways that we're going to react is it's going to happen. There's nothing that's going to stop it. It's actually anticipating that and acknowledging it in a different way to say, okay, here's this thing that's happening. How can I work through it to have these conversations in a helpful way, in a proactive way still, without having the feelings that I'm going on inside overcome all the things that need to actually be said and done. Because the fight or flight, which I think is really good that he points out, can actually have us, because it's fight or flight or freeze or fawn, right? So it can actually say, don't have this, this is bad. But we as managers and leaders don't have that option to just not have hard conversations in our organizations, because if we don't have them, no one will, or they will in a very negative way. So it's a very important that we find a way to navigate that in a healthy way.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I want to make sure we don't forget to introduce you. So, do you mind sharing
All
a
right.
little bit about who you are, what your role is at Pax8, how you got here?
Yeah, we probably just jumped into it because I work so closely with you. So my role here at Pax8 is the partner education specialist, and I do get to work alongside Bessie a lot with the instructor-led courses. So my role is a unique one here at Pax8 where I do build a lot of content for the instructor-led courses, and I get to facilitate those classes and help teach and help business owners and leaders and other people within the organization get better at their independent roles versus also just learning new things about MSP world. But I also get to facilitate some peer groups. So I get to kind of go into the best of both worlds, I think, because I really enjoy working with partners. And so I get to be with partners a lot, and I really do enjoy that. And it's led me to this course, kind of multiple courses that came about, which I'm really excited to talk about today.
Yes. So Sarah joined our team at the very beginning of the year, right? I think.
Right?
It feels
In
like it's been
January,
like
yeah.
many years already. But one of
Yeah.
the first things that we talked about was the need for leadership courses with Pax8 Academy instructor-led courses. And we started off on this journey of a huge brainstorm list, like probably like multiple pages long of figuring out what are the topics that we
Yes.
need to cover with this. Can you share a little bit about like how this all came about and how we figured this out to begin with?
Yeah, so actually, and it's hard to believe that it was that long ago, but the first thing that happened in January when I came in, they said, "Hey, we need leadership courses." So that's like your big bucket that you need to work on. I was like, "Okay, where are we starting with this?" Because that is so big, and we realized very quickly that this was going to be a multiple course thing, and it was probably going to be a long-term development of items. So that was the first thing that we all kind of identified was not we're going to set a course for this year, like kind of a path for this year to roll things out, but that this is going to be a huge development that we're going to continue building upon within Academy and offer as much as we can, because it's so important to organizations to get this honed in, to find some way of development within their own, because we love to promote within, right? But we have to be teaching as we go, and we talk a lot about that. So it was one of the first things, and I remember meeting with Amanda Glidden at the very beginning, and she was like, "This is what we need," and I was like, "All right, well, I'm real excited to be able to work on that." It's been a passion project for mine, actually, ever since I was a kid. My dad was really big into leadership development. It's one of the things that he publicly spoke about very often throughout his career, and so it kind of naturally spurred a passion for that within myself. And when I was working in the MSP, and from when we only had 2 employees to the fact that when we have 40 plus employees, it was something that I was always constantly navigating. So I'm really excited to see how this goes and the feedback that we get from it.
Awesome. Well, you have some slides. Should we
I
take a look at those?
do. Yeah, I had some slides not only to introduce some of the concepts that we talk about, but some of the coursework itself. So this is going to be a path, and this is kind of an introductory path as we start building up this management and leadership offering that we have through the ILCs, the instructor-led courses. I'm going to say ILCs a lot, just know I mean instructor-led courses. So the biggest thing that came out when we were talking about a leadership and management path is that leaders within the organization have to continually be growing their management and leadership skills and their capabilities. And that's just because as the MSPs grow, as businesses grow, they're having to expand their knowledge, because in every different stage, if you guys have been part of Pax8, you've probably seen these growth stages before, but they're expected to do new things. So for instance, in a stage 1, a business owner who's managing his team might only have 3 employees or so to manage, and they're looking to him to manage them. Then when they go on to a stage 2, he's working with, or he or she is working with a manager, so that they're now having some introductory to some middle management as they start leading their team. In stage 3, they're working with a whole team of managers. And in stage 4, that owner is no longer even in control of the day-to-day. They're looking forward to the future, and their new managers are now managing all of the stuff that's going on today and probably in the next year or two. So their skill level and how they lead looks different in every single stage that they're going to go through.
And we work with partners that are at every stage of those different growth stages. And we've worked with some partners who've started with growth stage 1 and all the way to growth stage 4. So we know that there's a little bit of something that everyone needs help with, no matter what stage they're at. Back to you, Sarah.
Absolutely. And when we're building these courses, one of the things that I regularly talk about is that we're just building these, having these building blocks, and we're trying to get them as stable as possible so that we can continue to grow off of them. And one of those is an effective team that needs to have a good management system. They need to be able to work together and to accomplish different goals. And if any one of these building blocks is shaky, then it's hard to get some stability for them to continue growing in the future. So having this be part of the things that we're talking about is essential for these stage growths. And as I stated, anytime that one of these building blocks isn't firm and stable, it causes some tension. And so when we're building off of them, let's say we don't have our processes firmly in place and we're in a stage 2. In stage 3, when we're trying to build up on top of those processes that aren't stable, it's going to cause some friction, some damage, and possibly some tumbling over, some regression. So in the same way with management, it's important that we're working on our management skills. We're building up our teams underneath us, because it's not going to get easier. We're going to continue to grow, and we're going to have to build up and advance our skill level. And unfortunately, because we're learning every time, so as a business owner, right, I'm in stage 2 and I'm working with a manager and I am working on that and trying to get it firm. And I go up to a stage 3 where I'm working with a whole team of managers. Well, if I haven't tuned that skill and I relied on my really great performer manager below me, and now I'm building a whole team, it can lead a whole bit like the blind leading the blind, because now my managers are having to be good managers to their team. And if I wasn't a good manager, we just get into a tumbleweed. So it has to be imperative that we as leaders are always growing, are always building up these skills. So one of my favorite things that I ask in my course on this, So They Want You to Lead, that's the first course that we're going to be talking about, is to raise your hand if you were put in a leadership role or a lead role because you were really, really good at what you do, and we now want to duplicate you. We just have everybody do what you do, right? And this is actually a very famous principle. It's called the Peter Principle, which means that we promote basically to incompetency. So just because someone's really good at their job doesn't actually make them a good lead or a good manager or a good leadership role. It doesn't mean that they can't, but it's not the same skill level. And so we have to be able to provide those skills and the leadership, the knowledge, to help them continue to grow. And we don't always know what those skills look like, and that's where we want to be tagged in. We want to say, hey, tag us in to allow some of that skill-based learning that we can provide so that they have tools to incorporate into their role. Whether we decide to recruit or promote, we may struggle to know even what these roles look like, what they need, or the skills needed to perform the certain roles. After all, this might be the first time that this role exists within our company, and this might be the first time that we're leading these certain roles. So all of this can add to a lot of difficult dynamics for us to navigate. And we like to have this one hand up, one hand down kind of concept where we're always growing. But how do we teach concepts when we're weak in them? I actually have this story that I talk about quite a bit because it was such a learning experience for me, but it was where I was in charge of professional services. Well, if you guys know me, I'm not a technical person, and trying to lead professional services was a really difficult role for me. And it was the first time that I really had to challenge myself as to how I lead a position that I'm not well versed in, I'm very weak in. So a question that I just constantly ask people is, do we first have to master and perform every role to lead up into the role? And we don't actually have to. That's kind of the crazy thing. Now, it looks different when we're leading it, right? But we have the capabilities to learn some of those skills of how to lead it without having to be the most knowledgeable person. Leading something is different than being the most knowledgeable person to lead. I had a great ability to work, or a great gift to work with so many skilled people and their team. And it does provide a different level of leadership that needs a lot of collaboration and a lot of trusting in them to be able to perform their role, but it is fully capable. And that's one of my favorite topics in the third course that we'll get to in just a minute when we introduce them. And here we go. So the leadership paths that we have, it's the 3 courses that are currently offered. So They Want You to Lead. This is a course that is for those that are promoted into a lead position. So either a team lead or a tech lead or some type of role that they are now in charge of certain dynamics, certain roles within the company. It does not mean a management position. It means that they are building and growing and offered more of a look just besides their own tasks, but they're not quite to managing. So the Intro to Management course is the second course that we're offering. And this is when they are starting to be able to manage a team, right? So that they have some accountability as to the performance of a team. And we want them to be holding that accountability. We talk so much then in the third one, which is leading the leaders. This is when you, as a leader, have managers underneath you who are leading teams or departments. So when we're talking about leading the leaders, we talk so much about creating a culture of accountability. And then in the intro to management, we talk about how to be accountable and how to lead a team to certain goals. They really work all together. And it's why I was so adamant when we started this leadership and management course that they have to kind of all flow. Because if we're not working all as the same team with similar jargon or concepts, then we're going to just get a lot of friction with trying to produce goals, trying to move forward towards concepts that we have in place. We have to all work together. So this is kind of our intro to those leadership courses. They are one slide back, please. Oh, nope, I lied. One slide forward. They are intended to work independently. So if we don't have everyone going to the course, that's okay. But when together, they create a lot of team synergy. So they produce vision alignment. We talk in every single course about getting on the same page, about creating feedback towards each other about what's working well, what's not working, what do we need collaboration on. It produces a common language so that when we're talking to each other about struggles or opportunities, we're using similar words and understand exactly what each other's talking about. Authority and accountability is created because we're understanding what that means from a very foundational level and building our organization on top of that. And then the specific skills that are needed at each one of these levels, which a lot of them are the same, right? We all need to know how to communicate. We all need to know how to delegate. We all need to know how to do all those things, but there are specific levels to it that we dive very deep into. Independently, these courses are going to provide some role clarity. And I do not go in here saying this is what your role is, because honestly, they look different in every organization. But what it's going to start doing is having your team ask the right questions as to understanding what their roles are and providing tactical tools to then go into that role with confidence. Discussing items for the team collaboration and the skills necessary to embrace these roles. We do start off almost every single one with talking either about authority, accountability, or what really is your job description, and using some definitions so that we understand what's expected of us at each level. When these courses are embraced by the team, they're going to create company-wide growth and performance. Getting on the same level, there's just nothing like that can create we're all going towards the same goal. We're all rowing at the same time in the same direction. So I encourage teams to be taking this in the different areas. I encourage leaders that are going to be going into the Lead the Leaders class. I encourage them to take all three so that they understand what their leads and their managers are getting taught. Not only do they build on top of each other, but knowing what the other roles are getting taught can help us speak their language even more. It's also going to build some healthy performance, and it's going to provide some mentoring opportunities. So if I'm in the Lead the Leaders course and I'm having a manager underneath me, understanding what they've been taught is going to allow some additional mentoring opportunities. And I say this in every single one of my courses, but effective teams practice effective meetings. So one thing that we're always going to be talking about is how meetings are essential for organizations to continue growing and building. And if you are not having effective meetings within your company, meaning everybody groans when there's meeting, leave meetings and we don't have anything to take away, any nuggets, we don't understand who's responsible for what. They tend to go on too long, or we don't seem to get anything accomplished. The first nugget for today that I'm going to offer you is find a way within your organization to have effective teams. Even if you don't engage in the courses, even if you don't do anything else, this alone is going to be a game changer for your organization. And one of the books I recommend is Death by Meetings. It's the first book that I read within my organization that helped us get some functional meeting flow. And there's a lot more books off of that, but this is the first one that really allowed me to say, hey, let's pause and get these under wraps And right after this, right after we started having some effective meetings, is when our company started growing by the bounds.
Sarah, I love this so much. I think that it's something that we don't always think about. I mean, there's always that joke like, oh, it should have been a meeting, right? Or should have been an email, not a
Yes.
meeting, right?
Yep.
Right. And I'm someone that especially working in a virtual world, I love having meetings. I think we accomplish so much, but I can definitely understand that if we're having too many meetings or they're not useful or effective meetings, that can really feel like a waste of time and can
Yeah.
really like hurt the team morale and so many different aspects. But what are some of the things that you recommend if you're a leader planning a meeting that you should really take into consideration?
Yeah, it's the stuff that we don't want to do. It's having an agenda. It's making sure that the right people are there. So we're not asking the entire team to come in when we're just trying to answer this question, to make sure to utilize time accurately and appreciating every resource that's in that room. But then it's that golden nugget at the very end. We're taking all the people, all the tasks, all the things that need to be done, and we're saying who's doing it, when are they doing it by, and the next meeting is scheduled so that the first thing that we're doing is saying, did we do the things that we said we were going to do? And if we don't have takeaways by the end of that meeting, then what were we even doing in that meeting, right? Were we just collaborating? And was that the intention of the meeting? All of those things are very necessary. And to your point, I had someone that religiously, after every meeting, if it didn't have a clear point and a clear takeaway, that was the first thing he always said to me was, this could have been an email. So I do think some good feedback systems for a meeting is actually really essential. In every single meeting, having a rating system, or at least someone to give you that feedback of, was this useful for everybody, for every resource that was in the room?
I love that. And I know you said these things that you don't even really want to do, but really can help drive business forward, can drive the team towards their goals, and really just keep pushing along. So I really appreciate that. I know, one quick thing about meetings is that we've started using Copilot in our team's meetings. We all got Copilot Pax8, very exciting. And I love using it for the meetings feature because it helps us track the notes. It tells me what I was assigned to do. It gives you kind of those like high level things. You need to obviously still prepare for the meeting, bring that agenda, but it helps really in the afterwards to summarize, to know what happened. And if you couldn't be at that meeting, then at least you have the email explaining what happened. So with that, we're going to do a quick transition over to sales pitch with Keith Marciano, and he's going to tell us a little bit about sales and AI. So let's take a look.
What is AI? What is AI for sales? What can you do in sales around it? Will it take our jobs? Are we going to get Skynet? Is Sarah Connor making a reappearance? I have no idea. I know today's episode is about leadership, but I really wanted to focus and talk about AI. What are barriers when it comes to sales? In making commissions? In growing your business? Is it budget? Getting leads? Not prospecting the right way? Not prospecting enough? Or the inability to ask strategic questions that build trust? How are you doing in sharpening your sales skills? For sales, AI has the ability, if we get competent at it, to make more sales to more people. Caution here, the combination of gathering details from your prospect, your sales skills, and AI will help you improve sales, not one alone. People buy from people they know, like, and trust. So how are you building familiarity and curiosity that will attract your prospect? So the other day, I actually tried this out with AI. I used ChatGPT to get some ideas. So I wanted to type in ideas around a construction company. That was my vertical when I was in the MSP market. I wanted to get some ideas on how to enhance the relationship, to kind of think about thought leadership and how I could attract them more. I actually just typed in, "Hi, I'm Keith. I'm in sales. I'm meeting with a prospect named Joe who is looking to grow his commercial roofing company. We both live in the Baltimore area, and the Baltimore Orioles is our favorite baseball team. He has owned the business for 5 years and he wants to grow his company. Please provide me creative ideas to help him build his business. Now just hit enter. AI will help you provide these ideas around building the business. And the responses I gave him were just a few, were educational workshops, host a Meet the Roofer event with other construction company. And then the other one was partner with residential roofers who could refer business back and forth with him. That was just a quick search. It took me a few minutes. If you walked into a meeting with Joe with these ideas and answers for him, he'll consider you a resource, a partner. It separates you from the competition. So let me just put caution number 2 out there. Do not just use what AI gives you. AI can be very robotic. Modify it to your language, to your voice. Use it daily to develop a competency around it. So let's touch all the bases on how AI can be used in your sales team. 1, list building. Input your target client profile to build lists. Have AI, whatever tool you use, tie into multiple other list resources and have it integrate with LinkedIn and your CRM. Going back to my target client profile example, I would actually type in, I want to see director of operations in the construction industry, Baltimore metro area with 35 to 75 employees. 2, automate and optimize sales enablement. As we discussed a little bit ago, integrating AI tools into your systems you're already using to automate prospecting. This can be done through sales intelligence solutions, sales outreach platforms, and even CRMs. Streamline and optimize sales engagement, basically improving the buyer-seller interactions. 3, be a true business partner. Use AI to find ideas to help companies in your TCP, like we mentioned earlier, to solve business challenges. Find out what they struggle with. See if you solve these problems with your current clients. 4, improve sales skills. Role play and practicing to be a better salesperson. Improving the questions that you ask. Be able to identify key insights, such as trends and objections that you may face during a sales engagement. This data then can be used to easily pinpoint areas of weaknesses and underperformance to help you be better. In baseball, practice makes perfect. AI is another tool to help you get better at sales skills and have better conversation. You just need to practice at it.
Well, thank you so much, Keith, for that great sales pitch. We always are learning a lot from you, and you got lots of great ideas on how to use AI. When we're thinking about AI with leadership, it feels a little bit weird, like they wouldn't go together. But Sarah, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that AI is going to be a great tool for us as managers and leaders. As you had brought up the example about having them take notes in meetings and providing good takeaways and to-dos, it's going to be a great tool, and it's going to continue to develop with that. But it's still up to us to have the skills as to what to do with that. I say a lot about AI is that AI is going to still need certain things to operate it and manage it. One of those things is good data. It's going to need data to mine from to get those tools and understand and how to interpret it. And that's going to take management and leadership as to how to create that good data. And then there still is going to be some kind of decisions that need to be made from this data and this information that we pull. So it's not going to take away any jobs in the management and leadership role whatsoever. It will help it. It will harness it. Will help us move forward with it. But it needs good leaders. For the second portion of this, I really wanted to go back to, if you could go back to that previous slide, please, about different things in the courses that you're going to learn. And the idea of this is actually to give you nuggets as to see some of the ideas and concepts that we're helping teach within these courses. So in the first course with Leading the Leaders, some of the issues that we identify is just having to have clarity in the performance, whether people are doing a good job or not. How do we create accountability? Evaluating if employees are a good fit. I know there's just so many times that I get in front of owners and they're going through this constant battle of, is it the job? Is it the accountability structure, or is it the employee? And they're constantly kind of navigating which it is. So going through all of that stuff, there's certain things that we're going to be talking about in the course. But one of the issues I want to talk about today, in the next slide, please, is creating this idea of true accountability. So this is our Leading the Leaders nugget for today. The issue about accountability is that it's not just, hey, I said to do something and they didn't do it, so now there's an accountability issue. Accountability is so big and so complex. And one of the biggest takeaways for me when I was growing as a leader was that I was actually structuring my company to not have true accountability. So for instance, in this accountability room, let's say that you have a CEO who's also working as an L3 engineer, as in that they're still doing some of the tech work. Maybe this is on project side, or maybe it's on the help desk, but that escalations are going to them. If they're still working as a CEO and doing that at their own pace, we've actually taken the accountability of away from the managed service manager as to a true performance of the service desk or the projects. They're now having this, well, we would have hit our numbers or we would have hit our KPIs had we not had to wait on the CEO to perform this L3 work. So it's understanding that when we're structuring and growing, that the accountability has to rely based on that managed service manager to perform. And that when that CEO is working in an L3 position, that they're actually accountable to the managed service manager. Same thing if you're having, say, the account manager work as a dispatcher as well. And I do see this quite a bit as they're growing, moving and growing, that they work in the same. When that account manager is working in the dispatching zone, they're accountable to that managed service manager. When they're working in the account manager position, they might be accountable to the CEO or to the operations manager. So in that world, you're going to have to say who trumps who as to what performance is most important. So it's having that awareness and that clarity and providing some of those dialogues for our managers and for our employees to have, so that when we're saying accountable, where we're structuring for it, we're not making excuses, we're not taking away, we're just having clarity for intention of improvements.
I have a quick question for you, Sarah, about that.
Please,
If you
I love that.
how can our partners best identify if that's happening in their organization? I'm kind of assuming that this might be happening and they obviously aren't wanting that to happen. So how can is that from the employee feedback, or is it from like the quality of work, or what are some things they can point out to see that?
Yeah, so what we talk about in that course is actually creating a accountability structure. So it'll go through and talk about the different levels of accountability. So you're talking about sales and marketing being one of them, right? Service as another one of them, finances as one, and it spreads down throughout the organization as to the levels of accountability. So say you have service, right? Then it goes into what type of service, help desk versus professional services, and so on and so forth. So you create this structure, and then who's ultimately accountable for those things, what buckets for accountability. And then you're looking at your hierarchy and saying who plays a role down below them, right? So like that CEO played a role below the management role. So we're identifying those. And as we scale and grow, and I know some MSP owners are definitely hearing me on this, you can't get around that. That happens. It's part of growth. It's part of, I don't have every seat and I can't afford every seat in every place. So I have to operate in this role until we grow a little bit so I can put someone in there. Identifying it does not mean that we have to fix it right away. It's saying, okay, well, if I'm going to hold my manager, if I'm going to hold my service manager accountable for those KPIs, I got to play by their rules when I'm working within that level. They're my manager in that situation, and that my hat at that point, they're my manager. So, and that's hard Gosh, I've done it and it's hard,
Yeah.
but it has to
Yeah.
happen.
I know an activity that we did on our Collaborate team and Academy once was where this was about a year ago. We all had Post-it notes where we wrote down all of our different tasks that we did and all the things we were responsible for. And we went through and saw, which Post-it notes did we need to take away from our manager? Which Post-it notes we needed to make sure it was on the right person's task for their role, and making sure that we weren't duplicating efforts that way. And I think that was another activity that was really helpful to making sure we were not duplicating efforts and accountability was in the right places. Is that something similar that you've heard before?
Yes, absolutely. So it's been interesting working on this team where it's also a department that's growing. So we have a lot of those like similar situations that a small MSP has, right? Where as we grow, we tend to give off jobs as, oh, you're really good at this, so you should take this on, which can be they're really good at this and they should take this on. But what it can create is structural issues as of who's accountable for what as it continues to grow, and acknowledging that sometimes I might have a task underneath someone else's job role for what they're actually accountable for. So if I'm not doing that task, or if that task is coming to the last of my, priorities, then I'm actually affecting the accountability of somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, let's go back to the slide deck and we can continue forward.
So the second course is the Intro to Management course. And this one we talk about a little bit of different issues. We do hit those accountability issues as well, but more about like how do we lead goals, teams that achieve goals? How do we create less confusion with how we're moving forward? Creating really good data so that we can not only have good feedback for our team, but also feedback for our leadership. Finding any boundaries that have some gray in them, especially in authority, and then the large learning curves for skills, not only for us, but for our team, and understanding our role as a big key player in a growing MSP and a growing company in general. So many times we get into a management position because we were really good at what we did. But I know one of the HR, when I was talking to them about these courses, because I did a lot of research, not only with our internal resources, but with Academy itself. And one of my favorite phrases was that you lead people and you manage things. And that is such a big tool that I've utilized in this course itself, because although we need some leadership skills with managing the things, because we need people to manage the things, it's really about creating that data about how our team's performing on service, on professional services, on finances, on sales and marketing, whatever the case may be. I want to make a big shout out to the fact that we have a service management and an advanced service management course that are fantastic at diving down deep into service management. This course is actually provided for managers at any level, at any different department. It's not just service-based. So we handle a lot of the basic skills and not the service-specific ones.
And would you recommend that a partner who is a service manager also take the Intro to Management course, or should they just take the service management? What do you recommend?
Yeah, I do. It's different skills, and I've had access to the service management and advanced service management, to those resources, and talk to them where they're going to provide a lot of very specific, like the data that you should specifically be watching. I more talk about if you're trying to problem solve for a certain area, how you find that data in the first place. So it's very different looks into those type of areas. So I do recommend that you take. Of course, I'm going to recommend that you take all of them. I think that our ILCs are great. So, but I do. I wanted to make sure that the people that took those other classes would still get a lot of benefit from here, and that we continue to develop on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in this Intro to Management, one of the areas that I talk about is gaining some visibility through solid data. And it's a really key element of management, that we're not only just saying the gut and feel of how things are feeling within our organization, but actually getting data to prove how we're performing. Are we going better, or are we not getting better? What do we need to be improving upon? And is this data consistent? Are we inputting data at a consistent level so that we have that level of, are we successful, the measurement of success? One of the things that I talk about quite a bit, not only in this class, but in the operations class, it comes out quite a bit too, is the fact that you need really good processes for measurements of success. If you could go to the next slide, please. Documentation and good processes actually is required to create consistent data inputs, which is how we get mineable data. And mineable data, by the way, shout out to AI, is what AI uses as well to create some of those tools to create the knowledge base of whether things are going well, of when decisions need to be made. So in this Intro to Management course, we really dive down into not only finding those measurable data, that mineable data, what are we trying to look at, and going into that idea. And I talk about this as a very funny story about myself when I was growing up, where I can't go by fuel skis, and that's a term that my team to this day uses. I hear them using it all the time. I can't live in the fuel skis, which is I feel like something's off. I feel like something's not going well. Things feel like they're just this or that. How we move from that into the data showing me that we're performing in this way, and we need to pull some sort of lever to move one way or the other. It's creating it very consistent decisions made off of that. And the last course, or the first course, by the way, that they lay out, but the last one I'm going to talk about today is So They Want You to Lead. So this is that we're not quite ready for management, maybe by that person's skill level or by that we're just not ready for it. But we have a team that needs some kind of leadership. And so we promote someone to either a team lead, or maybe they're just working over a tech lead. So they're not leading people necessarily, but they're leading the technology or the influence of technology within their company. I just kind of introed into that this can be a very broad topic, and I hit it just as such. The first thing that we hit off on day one is, what are we doing? What are you supposed to be leading? What KPIs are you being held accountable for, if any? If not, how do we know that your role is successful? And that generally is a very big topic that comes back and allows for a lot of conversation the next day, because that clarity is going to very much instill how they move forward in this role. And the thing that I teach in this class that tends to be the biggest impactful is, now that we're not just in charge of ourselves anymore, but we either have a team or tech or some kind of having to work differently, how do I get it all done? How do I do what I'm supposed to do in any given day and then some more? So what I teach is the Eisenhower matrix, which is just a way to prioritize your time, a way to say, here's all the things that I have in my brain, very active brain that's going a million miles per minute as to the improvements that could be made or the things that we could be doing. And here's how I'm going to try to accomplish and get them done. So it goes by leveling the urgency of things versus the importance of things. So you can see that on the urgency level, when things are a high urgency and a high importance, we're just going to do those things. Those things have to be done immediately, and they're very important, so we're going to do them immediately. But possibly it's high urgency but low importance. Those are the things that we're going to try to delegate. As we're working with a team, we're going to just create tickets for them or whatever the case may be and delegate them off. But the real gravy here is when our urgency is low and the importance is high. This is where big changes are made within an organization. This is what makes a big impact. So we have to schedule. We have to schedule that time, and we have to keep it very sacred. This is generally where departments move forward, is in this scheduling time. Then it's identifying those low urgency things and those low importance things that maybe get tasked off to us. They may have just been tinkerings of our brain, and it's probably evaluating those for, do we really need to be doing those? Leaving them in the delete pile. I'm really excited about this course. I really believe that if everybody's growing, if everybody's moving forward, then success takes care of itself. And my passion for this just comes from being able to work with the amazing people that I did at my MSP. I'm so thankful for the team that I had, and I'm more than overwhelmed to be working in an academy who all kind of embrace this continual growth and continual education, and that I get to provide that for other people. So our upcoming courses or classes for these is the Introduction to Management. It's actually going live next month. And then after that is Leading the Leaders. And then the So They Want You to Lead already ran this year. So it's going to be starting again up in January. So be looking for that, and be looking for other classes that are associated to this. I'm continually growing off of them as people are giving me more ideas and, giving me more feedback on them.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I know it's very exciting. So if you are wanting to sign up for any of these courses, I'm just going to do a quick, let you know how you can sign up. So if you can just go to pax8.com/academy and click on instructor-led courses. There you'll see descriptions for each course. It'll include what are the main learning objectives, who is the course for, and a link to enroll. So you can enroll that way. Or if you are part of the instructor-led course subscription, which is a company-wide subscription for everyone at your company to take advantage of our courses, you can sign up through your registration page. If you're not sure about how to do that, email our team, collaborate@pax8.com, and we will help you out. But that is going to be the main way. And we also have these linked directly in our YouTube description below. So you can just click on those links to register, and we'll see you there soon. So I'm very, very excited about these upcoming courses. Thank you, Sarah, for explaining what is covered in each thing. Something I love that you added to this presentation was a little bit about the assignments that are might be included, or like some of the activities that might be requested of you for participating. It really highlights how this is an interactive courses. This is not just going to be Sarah on a webinar talking to you and then you go take that knowledge with you. It's going to be really a way to learn more deeply by interacting. The more you interact, the more you get out of the class. So we really hope that you come and you interact with us. Do you want to add anything, Sarah, about those kind of assignments, or like how class works, to just paint a little picture?
Yeah, and not that this happens every time, but one of kind of the greatness of the fact that I got to kind of create all these courses is that it creates so much dialogue and conversation between the team, so much shared jargon that you can have, and it is intended for you to take back little trinkets every time to be able to continue to practice skills, practice what you're putting in place, and have hard conversations and good conversations with your team about how to continue to grow together, because that's what it's about, not just one person. It's going to need, which shout out to the subscription model. If you have your subscription for your company, your whole company can come for that one price.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much. Is there anything that we did not cover today that you want to make sure that we include? Any final nuggets? I mean, I think my biggest nugget that you said today was it people or leaders? Wait, can you say it one more time? It's about leaders and people and things.
Yeah, you lead people and manage things. Yeah, that was something that came from Pax8 when they were talking. Yeah, that they were telling because that was one of the greatest things about when I was starting this course, is I got so much collaboration from so many different parts of Pax8, not only, the developing talent within our own teams, but Academy and so many owners and the development of their teams that they've had. So it's been a really fun, I get to just learn from so many different people and figure out, how put the best foot forward for these courses.
Amazing. Yes. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You're an amazing guest. We love having you on the show. Hopefully you'll be back again soon. So thank you so much, Sarah. And
of course,
we'll see you next time. Well, I want to thank everyone so much for watching. Please be sure to check us out next week. Our guest will be Matthew Monk, and he'll be talking about his new course starting in September called Understanding Email Security. So if you are curious about email security and how to better protect yourself, you're going to come learn a lot at that next show next week. So we're live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time and on demand always. Please don't forget to subscribe and like us on our YouTube channel. As Rex would say, ask yourself, what are you going to do differently tomorrow to improve your business? Thanks, everyone. See you next week.